When we slow down, we are way more present in the conversation, which means you can be more attuned to their needs. So if your husband starts to show a shift in his body language or in his tone, you're going to catch it. And whatever he's sharing, you're actually going to be able to hear it for what it is rather than listening to respond. You're going to listen to understand. What I mean by this is he's saying something and you're already, while he's still talking, thinking of what you're going to say back to him. And how do you feel when you feel understood? It feels good. It feels like you want to keep engaging in the conversation to work things out. But when you don't feel understood and it doesn't feel like the other person is making any effort to understand you, all you want to do is throw up two fingers and say peace out, right?
Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. As a marriage coach who's married with 3 kids, I know how much parenthood could change a marriage. If flirting, laughing, and having fun together feels like a thing of the past, then I'm here to teach you that marriage doesn't have to feel so hard with your parents, and your marriage can thrive even when you're in the season of raising kids. Whether you're in a good place in your marriage and you just want to continue growing together, or you're wondering if you even like your spouse anymore, this podcast has something for you. Join me here each week as we dive into what it takes to help your marriage grow, and maybe even do a 180. You'll learn ways to handle conflict better, bring that spark back into your relationship, as well as learn how to improve other areas of your life from my lovely guest experts. Are you ready for the next stage of your life in marriage? Let's dive in.
Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. Today, we're going to be focusing on something that can really help you master communication with your spouse with more intention, with more effectiveness, with more success, okay? Because conflict is going to happen. Like, that is not something I can wave a magic wand and make disappear for you. It's going to happen, okay? So what we can do is make sure that we have the tools and the capacity to make sure that we can get through and navigate conflict with more skill, with more intention, with more presence, so that it actually serves the purpose that we need it to, which is to bring you two closer together, learn more about each other, move on and grow as a couple, okay? So if you're new here, I'm really glad you're here, okay? In my world, I believe that conflict is inevitable in our marriage, but arguing is completely optional, okay? And so this episode is going to touch on why it is so important for us to slow down when it comes to navigating conflict if you want to be able to ensure that conflict is going to help you grow closer together and have your marriage get better and better over time, okay? So if you're in a marriage right now where it feels like you are constantly arguing, where it feels like conflict equals arguments, and your marriage is just full of moments where you're either in an argument or you're between arguments, okay? If this is your reality right now, you are in the right place, okay? I used to find myself in so many arguments in all of my relationships. And it really took me realizing that I was not approaching it the right way. I was not fighting the right way. I was not utilizing any skill whatsoever because I was just basing my communication off of what I witnessed growing up and what I thought would be a better way to do it. But it wasn't. And I realized after several relationships, after experiencing the same dynamic over and over, that hello, raising my hand up here, that I was a common denominator in all those relationships and that I needed to grow. I needed to grow as a person in my self-awareness. I needed to grow as a communicator. And until I did that, I was going to continue experiencing the same cycle in my relationships, no matter who I was with, no matter if my partner was a great communicator or not, I was always going to end up finding myself in that same dynamic, and I was done. I was done with it, okay? And so if that's you, no judgment, okay? It's not like you were taught when you were young how to communicate, unless you're one of the lucky few that has parents who knew how to be great communicators, demonstrated to their kids, taught it to their kids, modeled it to their kids, how effective communication works in the face of conflict. Because anyone can communicate well when things are all fine and dandy, right? You can be nice when you're feeling great, but can you still be kind and respectful and communicate your needs without having to put other people down, without getting defensive and utilizing all these coping mechanisms when you're not fine, when you're mad, when you're frustrated, when you're stressed? Okay. Now, we are not here to be perfect. Okay. Even as a marriage coach who helps people and actively works on becoming a better and better communicator, I still have my moments. I still have my slip ups. We are human, right? This is not about being perfect, getting it 100% of the time. No. This is about doing our best and having the tools and knowing how to support ourselves to have the capacity to pull out those said tools, right? Because you can go ahead and read a book about how to be a great communicator, but if you do not work on your capacity to think of utilizing those tools, it doesn't matter how many tools you have, okay? So today is all about slowing down so we can master conflict with more intention, so you can walk away from conflict feeling like a more solid, strong couple without those awkward moments where you're like trying to test the waters to see if you're fine again, right? You know what I mean. After a fight, things feel tender and raw and you kind of don't know where you stand, right? Like the argument is over. Maybe you have a resolution, maybe you don't, but it's a little awkward. So you kind of have to walk on eggshells with each other. Maybe you crack a joke. Maybe you offer them some food or a drink or do them a favor to see if you two are fine again, right? Slowing down is not something that comes natural to me. Okay. I am an Aries. I naturally just want to go fast with everything. And if you're into human design, I'm also a manifesting generator, which means I love to do things as quickly as possible. Like efficiency is my jam. Okay. Inefficiency really irritates the shit out of me. Okay. And so, as you can imagine, learning to slow down when it comes to navigating conflict was a real lesson for me to learn that I had to repeatedly learn. But now looking back, I'm like, actually, it is more efficient to slow down because I make less mistakes, because I can be more intentional, because I can actually hear them out better. And we end up resolving the conflict way faster than if I had just jumped into the conversation when I felt like I wanted to. Okay, so if you're like me and you're like, anytime you feel stressed out or frustrated, you feel like you need to tell your partner right away. You feel like you need to address it because this is how you show you care, because you just want to go back to normal again. Sit tight, okay? This is like specially made for you, all right? So, some things, when you do them slower, you actually do them better, okay? So, because I love cooking, I'm gonna use a cooking analogy. When it comes to making beef stew, we are in the season of fall. We're quickly approaching winter. It is cold. We are wanting all the warm and hearty foods, right? So before, I would just throw in chunks of beef, which, by the way, if you're a foodie like me, I highly recommend not buying stew cut meat. Okay. Instead, if you have a Costco nearby or a good butcher, buy chuck meat. Okay, make sure it's got that good marbling and cut it yourself. It is way better because it's not as lean. And so then you'll have that tender, juicy, flavorful meat. All right. Anyway, pro tip. So, anyway, before I really got into cooking, I would just buy stew meat and throw it all into a pressure cooker. Throw it into the pot with all the onions, the carrots, the celery, potatoes, and the beef broth and all the seasonings, and press start, and it'll do the thing. It'll work its magic, right? Even though it's the same recipe, because I was just throwing everything into the pot, it ended up, tasting all right. But you know what made it taste better? Was when I slowed down and I intentionally did every step with more purpose. So instead of throwing all the meat and all the ingredients into the pot and hitting start, I would brown the meat. And that would take multiple batches, right? Because you can't crowd the pot or else it'll start boiling, essentially, because all the juices are running out, right? So you need ample space to brown the meat. And then it creates this thing called a Maillard effect. It creates more flavor. The bits end up on the bottom of the pot. And then I'll go ahead and put butter in there and some oil and scrub the bits off so that the flavor can go into the sauce. And then I will saute the onions with the garlic, and then later on layer in the different ingredients, not just all at once, but really letting the flavors develop with each ingredient, right? And then I'll throw the meat back in. The tomato paste, the beef broth, the seasonings, and then hit start. And when you do that, the flavor is so much fuller. It's got so much more depth, right? It tastes more like what you would eat at a restaurant, but you made it at home, right? And so when it comes to conflict, when we are in a hurry and we're trying to do what we might think is faster to resolve things, to avoid our discomfort of feeling frustrated or feeling like we were betrayed or feeling like we were unsupported or overwhelmed and upset, that's when things don't turn out very well, right? We start to get really emotional. We are fumbling over our words. We're not clear on why we're upset. We're not clear on what we are wanting out of this conversation. And so maybe we start to talk in circles. We are maybe allowing ourselves to be more reactive than usual. So if your partner isn't saying what you need him to say, maybe you're going to get defensive. Maybe you're going to bring up the past. Maybe you're going to take jabs and criticize or name call or whatever it is that you typically do in an argument. All of those habits that we have that are toxic, maybe those come out. This is all due to rushing the conversation. This doesn't happen when we slow down, because when we slow down, we can be more strategic. We can pivot. We can notice more what's going on. We can notice, okay, I think that maybe there's a misunderstanding, right? I said something and all of a sudden he's pissed, but I didn't think that would upset him. And then you can pause and clarify or ask questions on what's going on in his mind, or you can ask questions about what he meant by something instead of going full force. And it's like trying to stop a freight train. It's like, no, there's no stopping it, right? They're going to stop when they have planned stops. But like, if you ask that train to stop at the drop of a hat, no, that's not going to happen. It's got momentum going behind it, right? And that momentum in conflict is your emotion. It's that lack of preparation and lack of taking things intentionally and slowly and thoughtfully and strategically. It's kind of like when you're driving a car really fast down the freeway, okay? The smallest turn is going to be way more exaggerated when you go fast. You need a longer response time when you're going fast on the freeway, right? So if someone is just all of a sudden stopping right in front of you, you better have given yourself a lot of distance between you and that car. Otherwise, your car is going to kiss the back of that car, right? Maybe there's going to be some injuries. But when you're driving slower, by the way, I'm not promoting driving slow on the freeway. Okay, that's also unsafe. But when you're driving slower, you can make changes to your path, your trajectory a lot easier. You can pivot better. You can respond better. Okay. I don't know if that's a good example, but I'm going to run with it. Okay. Take one of the examples that I gave you and whatever works best for you, just use that. All right. But slowing down has truly changed how I experience conflict in my marriage, and I will never go back. Okay. I will never go back. As someone who hates to not feel okay with my loved ones, take my word for it. This is the most worthwhile thing that you can do to drastically improve your relationships. Okay. So here are the benefits of slowing down. When we slow down, we are way more present in the conversation, which means you can be more attuned to their needs. So if your husband starts to show a shift in his body language or in his tone or in his speech, you're going to catch it, right? And whatever he's sharing, you're actually going to be able to hear it for what it is rather than listening to respond. You're going to listen to understand. I'm going to repeat that because a lot of this goes missed in conversations, right? When you are more present, you are going to listen to your partner, not to respond. And what I mean by this is he's saying something and you're already, while he's still talking, thinking of what you're going to say back to him. Okay? So instead of listening to respond, you're going to listen to understand. And how do you feel when you feel understood? It feels good. It feels like you want to keep engaging in the conversation to work things out. But when you don't feel understood and it doesn't feel like the other person is making any effort to understand you, all you want to do is throw up two fingers and say, peace out, right? I don't want to be a part of this. I'm done. I want to storm off. I am done with this conversation. This is going nowhere. I don't feel like you're here for us. You're here for you, right? And so this could be your husband's experience if you're doing the same thing. Okay. Another benefit is more intentionality. When you slow down, it allows you to choose your words more carefully so that you can speak with respect and kindness. Okay. Respect and kindness doesn't mean that you're a doormat. Respect and kindness means I'm going to respect my needs, my feelings, but also be kind and respect your needs and your feelings. And both can exist. Just because I'm mad doesn't mean that you can't be mad. Just because I'm hurt doesn't mean you can't be hurt. Both get to be valid and heard. Okay. Another thing is better responsiveness. You're going to be able to respond more thoughtfully and intentionally and compassionately rather than responding emotionally, aka reactively, right? That's where we get the back and forth where it's like, oh, you're going to be reactive, I'm going to be reactive. And then it's kind of like playing a game of tennis where it's like, who's going to outreact the other person? Who's going to be more witty? Who's going to be more critical? All of that is not going to help you with your goal of growing closer as a couple. That is a fight, okay? A fight where both of you will lose because you are not in it to win it together. You are in it to knock the other person down or prevent your partner from knocking you down. But if that's what you're doing, that's not effective communication. That's just fighting, right? That's the reason why your marriage feels like it is one fight away from going downhill. Or maybe it's already going downhill and the fights just continue to pile on and make things worse and make you question why you're still married, why you're still in it, why even bother putting any effort to fix things. Okay? Another thing is that when we slow down, we have more productive and successful outcomes, right? You get to work together to come up with a resolution. You get to demonstrate that you still care for your partner, even though you're upset. And that's why you're doing it, right? Like you're bringing the issue up so that things can improve. But in order for things to improve, both people need to want to be in the conversation. Both people need to feel heard. Both people need to feel validated and acknowledged. And then we will let our guard down to be able to work together to collaborate on coming up with a solution that works for both people. Okay? So, those are just some of the few benefits of slowing down when it comes to conflict. Now, here are tips on how to slow down if you're like, okay, sounds great. How do I do this? Because when I'm mad, I see red. Girl, I understand. Okay. So, the first tip for you is pause before speaking. Okay. Pause before you even approach the issue. And this goes in line with my PEACE method, okay? P, the very first letter of the method, stands for pause, right? So making sure you give yourself time to pause and work through whatever stuff is coming up for you. Why are you mad, right? Why are you mad? What is it that you are wanting? Why are you feeling this way? What did you need in this moment for things to turn out differently, right? And what can you learn out of this? So it's a lot of reflecting in this first step. But when we understand ourselves and we raise our awareness of what the hell just happened to trigger this response out of us, this reaction, we can then be more clear and grounded when we actually approach our partner with the issue because we've got ourselves figured out. We have our own side because we've got ourselves figured out. Now we have the capacity to understand their side of things, right? Because what we understand about the situation is just our own perception. It's whatever our minds, which are flawed, are allowing us to understand what happened. So we could be biased, right? We can assume the worst. But knowing that there is a whole different side, maybe there's stuff that we aren't aware of, right? Maybe there are things that are occupying his mind that we have no idea about. Maybe he has priorities that he chose to put ahead of what we thought were priorities, and it's just a misunderstanding or a miscommunication, right? There's a lot of things that can contribute to why things go sideways and can lead to conflict. And so when we pause, we can allow ourselves to feel our feelings, but not take those extreme emotions into the conversation. We can go into the conversation feeling more neutral, knowing, okay, I am upset and I do feel wrong, but I don't feel like, strangling him right now. I feel like, okay, I know why I'm upset. I can firmly advocate for myself and still be open to hearing him out. Only then are you ready. Okay. So for the rest of the PEACE method, just to quickly break it down, P is for pause, right? And you can do this by taking deep breaths, either box breathing, look that up if you haven't heard of it, or by doing longer exhales than your inhales. When we do longer exhales, that tells our body, our nervous system, that we are safe. We can relax, okay? Because our bodies don't know the difference between emotional safety and physical safety. And when we are feeling triggered, it sends off all alarms, okay? And so it thinks that we are in danger when really it could be a misunderstanding and it's not actual danger, okay? So do any of those. Meditate, go on a walk, do something that is calming for you, and then ask yourself those reflective questions. The next one is express. Expressing what you are uncovering about your experience, no blame, right? Expressing what it is that you were needing, allowing him to express, And basically, this is the communication part, right? Okay. A is for acknowledge. Acknowledge the part that you played in this. This is going to allow for your partner to let his guard down. And this is going to demonstrate that you also played a role and you're taking responsibility for it. You're not blaming him, and you are truly here to work things out. And then he can open up and feel safe to acknowledge the role that he played. C is for connect. Okay? Connect with each other to collaborate, to come up with a resolution that works for both of you guys. All right? Making sure that you two are both getting what you need out of this situation. When we have conflict, that brings up a lot of feelings, a lot of things that we need to deal with. And it can leave us feeling very vulnerable. And this is a perfect moment for you two to connect and grow stronger. And then lastly, E is for embrace. This is how we can prevent things from feeling awkward after conflict. And you can do this by high-fiving each other, by saying, hey, we got through this. Or hugging, holding hands, having sex, doing something fun, something to offer closure and reconnection after the conflict. You can debrief on how the argument went or express your appreciation for how well things went compared to other fights. So it could be like, hey, we got through this. Hey, we didn't yell. Hey, we took longer to yell. Hey, we listened to each other better. Whatever, right? Any of those things work. So that's my peace method. Some other things that I want to offer you to help you use this peace method more effectively is making sure that you set time to handle this conflict in a time that works best for the two of you, right? So don't ambush your partner as soon as he comes home or ambush them when he's watching TV. Make sure that he is ready for it, right? You want someone who's prepared for the conversation, not someone who's going to feel surprised in ambush and be like, what the hell, and already have a negative mindset when it comes to having the talk. Okay. Next is focus on curiosity. Make sure that you are calling out all your assumptions, make sure you're asking questions and basing your decisions and your responses off of truth coming from his mouth. Okay? Just be super curious about why you're feeling the way you do, why he's feeling the way he does, what's going on, so that you are not blaming or criticizing. Okay? And then also make sure you remember why you're there. What is the overall goal of the conversation? What do you want to get out of it? Keep that in mind throughout the entire conversation, because it's easy to get sidetracked and go off track when we get triggered, when we feel like we're attacked, when we feel like we need to be defensive. We can easily get off track and go into that back and forth conversation. Remember your goal and stick with it, okay? That's it for this episode. Let me know if this helped you out. Remember, slow down. That's going to help you speed up conflict. Otherwise, if you don't, you're going to have to do more repair work. You're going to have more awkwardness between you two. And we don't want any of that, right? We want to be able to just deal with it and move on, because your marriage is not about being in arguments or being between arguments. It's about experiencing joy. It's about growing together. And these are just little growth moments. So take it for what it is, utilize it, squeeze all the juice out of it that you can, and move on and live your life together. Have fun, flirt, okay? Connect, do all the good things together. All right? So if you're wanting support with this, let me know. Also, grab my free guide. It's a conflict to connection guide where I help walk you through how to do the pause step of the peace method so that you can go into conflict way more confident and clear, so that you have the capacity to listen, to understand, to set the tone for a better conversation. Okay? All of that is in the show notes, and I'll catch you back here in the next episode. If you know someone that could benefit from listening to this episode, please do her a solid and share this. And if you love this show, please leave a rating and review, and I'll catch you back here on the next episode. Bye.
That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, please send me a message over on Instagram at Michelle Perta Coaching to let me know what you loved most about it. Hearing from my listeners is my absolute favorite. And if you've been loving this podcast, please leave a rating and review. This will help people like you find the show and get the help they need. Catch you here on the next episode. Bye.